But okay, so Jonathan, let's think about it here, right? The Tigers, they switch lineups so much, but they're known for three things, insufferable things. Okay. And they're always nightmare things that come up to me every single year. First of all, there's always three because you can't have two things. It's got to be always three things.
Two's a weird number.
Two is a weird number. First, drum roll, please. Cannot hear that drum.
Oh, you cannot
But
hear it? Okay.
first, first on the list, uh, let's think all the way back to Jim Joyce robbing Armando Garago before instant replay was a thing of a perfect game. I think
You
that was
had to bring
honestly
it
the
up.
reason perfect. Yeah, I did. I have to bring it up because my Instagram reels bring it up every year, and it makes me even more sadder every
Fun
year. It
fact,
was
fun fact about that
you sent
game.
me it and made me more depressed. So this is
Oh,
your
sorry
fault.
about that.
This is why.
Um, so Jim Leland that season, I think got thrown out 7 times all season.
That's a record.
And he was told if he got thrown out any more times, they were going to fire him for getting thrown out too much.
I
But
didn't
he,
know that.
but interestingly enough, the two most controversial calls that year, which I forget the second one offhand,
Mhm.
but the number one most controversial was losing that perfect game. He did not get thrown out of the game. He got thrown out of less important games and less like controversial calls, but didn't during that one. Also, it's funny because then a few years after him, we hired Rod Gardenhire, who got thrown out literally it was like every other day.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. We were like, oh, Jim, you need to cool it. You've been thrown out 7 times this year. And then
And then
Rod's
we
like,
hire
I'll do that in a month.
Gardenhire is like the Aaron Boone of this day and age.
Hmm.
Aaron Boone, I feel like every 2 days on Pitching Ninja, I see, which great account by the way. On
It is a
Pitching
great account.
Ninja, I see, oh, Aaron Boone are mocking umpire. Aaron Boone gets ejected because fan threw nachos. Oh no. Speaking of ejections, you ever see the video? It was actually at Comerica Park of the Marlins coaching staff when the umpires ejected the wrong player or wrong person.
No.
The the bench coach was yapping, and they thought it was the manager because at the end of the day, the manager is responsible for the dugout, and
Yup.
the umpire kind of makes an assumption there that says someone bapping, okay,
Yeah.
you're out. But the Marlins manager, this was this year, Marlins manager comes out and he goes, not verbatim, but it wasn't me. What do you mean it wasn't me? And he's like, so the crew chief comes over, whoever comes over from third base,
Hmm.
and he's like, "Okay, let's figure out. I've never seen this happen before, but they overturned his ejection. But we're sitting here and we're standing and we're going and we have a conversation with two guys, and they're like, "Was it me? Was it you? No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me." Then the bench coach was like, "You know what? I'll take it for the blame." Uh, and goes right out and says, yeah, and takes it out. But it was a 5 minute process, Jonathan, of them like yapping over near the dugout. I think they even put their video review earpiece in,
Really?
and they're like,
Is there
okay,
video? Is there video of the dugout during this? I'm sure
yeah,
there is.
John Boy has it.
Okay.
But the
Oh, that might
that,
I may have seen this then actually. If John Boy has it, I might know what you're talking about now.
but I've never seen someone overdo an eject or
Overturn an ejection.
overturn an ejection.
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting.
but that was moment number one. Okay.
Yep.
Number that was suspenseful enough.
That
Number
was
two,
very suspenseful.
in the AL, was it ALCS?
Um
I'll tell you the moment, then you can tell me.
2014?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it
where
was the
Big
LCS.
Poppy hit a grand slam over the wall, over
I
the
remember
outreaching
watching
glove
the
of Toy Hunter.
yeah, I remember watching the like tracks thing on MLB of that.
It's every year, those two memories. I feel like they want to torture us as Tigers fans, Jonathan. And I feel like you play a part in that, honestly, because the
Hey,
amount of
I don't
clips.
send you all these.
Yes, you do.
No, I send you other really dumb
Do,
clips,
do
like the
do not
rally
do not
goose.
lie. Do not lie to your
I
podcast
send
and
you
tell
like
me you do not
the
send.
rally goose and stuff.
This is true. You do.
Yeah.
But The amount of times that comes up on my feed every year, I plead to me. I'm gonna look directly into the camera here. I plead to you, Major League Baseball. Please stop bullying us with these clips. We go through enough as a fan base. Look at what we've done for the last 10 years.
In Detroit,
We
in general, right
we
now.
do not we Detroit in general, we can't even build a parking lot in the district of Detroit that said they've been building for years now. Um, but tell me, MLB, why? Why does your social media think it's cool to harass and bully us fans for these moments? Tell me.
No, that is definitely true. Like, yeah, they're just rubbing it in at this point. But
What's the third moment? Oh, the third moment is that they suck. I
no,
understand that.
yeah, I was gonna say the third thing is they're just bad right now. I
But
guess that relates to the outfield wall on the whales being covered up though.
yeah, well,
Like that's your moment right there is the whales getting covered back up.
uh-huh. But think about the hitting, okay? The pitching has been absolutely dominant this year,
Hmm.
Jonathan.
We have one of the
Pitching,
better bullpens and some
somehow
of the
Reese
best
Olson is
starting
like two
pitchers.
and eight. Although wins and losses in this for the audio, if you're just tuning in for the first time here, let me explain to you. Wins and losses for a starting pitcher
They
do
mean
not
nothing.
matter. Nothing. None of it.
Even for
Because
relievers, they mean nothing. Did you see the
exactly.
Oakland A's guy the other day who got a guy in a pickle,
Yeah.
ended up getting the win, and he recorded that one out on a pickoff
Yeah.
move? Like
Even
wins and losses don't mean anything. And the
the
people who say
pitcher
that
that
they
got someone
do,
to go on a ball four pitch violation to walk off the game yesterday. The pitcher
hmm,
got the win for that.
yep, like no, I'm a firm believer that pitching wins and losses mean nothing. And that's why a lot of the times I won't use that. And I've even said on here, like it's a dumb stat.
But
Just because you literally can pitch and give up one
yeah,
run the entire
yeah.
game, 9 innings. If your team doesn't score and you pitch complete game, one hit, one home run for one run against you, and that's all you do, your team scores nothing, you still get the loss. But I bet you if you pitch that every single game, you would win the Cy Young, if you only give up one run a game because you have a 1 ERA.
It's the
No
same
one's beating
thing
a one
as
ERA realistically for a starter.
it's the same thing as batting average on the opposite side. Like everyone, every time I go to a game for a lot of people, people are like, "Oh, he's hitting a 240 average." Okay, but
Hmm.
look at his OPS. Average doesn't
Yep.
really include the sac flies. It doesn't count the base on balls. It doesn't count
Yep.
the everything else that happens in a baseball that sometimes doesn't appear on the score sheet because a
Yep.
sac fly counts as a 0-0 because it's a sac.
Right.
So
Or
the
another thing that I hear a lot is I heard this 2 weeks ago from some of my relatives. They're like, we need to fire the hitting coach at the Tigers. I'm like, he just got there. They're like, but the team's batting
yeah,
cumulatively like 235 or something like that. I'm like, that's literally the league average or right around it. They're batting about average. You don't need to fire him. Also, he's there in his first year. Give him some time. It's a young team. They're like, oh, well, like Gunnar Henderson's doing really well. I'm like, yeah, that's also Gunnar Henderson, you
also
know.
exactly.
But even if you're batting 270 now, like, do I like that? No, I
No
think that guys should be batting closer to 300, but that's also because I have a different philosophy on,
philosophy
you
of
know, but realistically, batting 270 currently, you're doing really well.
yeah.
And I'm happy with guys who are doing that. I just like to personally see guys try to push closer to 300 because as I've talked multiple times on this podcast, I tend to like 80s baseball a lot more with a bit of a
Mm,
higher average, lower home runs because I like the small ball aspect a little bit more. Um, but really, even if you're batting 250, you're still batting at or above
above
league
the
average.
league average, yeah.
Um, it's a
It
different game than it was 20 years ago. Um,
league
and
average
yeah,
too is adjustable because think about the balls have changed based off
hmm,
of 20 years
pitchers are
ago.
throwing
Pitchers
harder.
are throwing harder, which are ending up with more Tommy John or
Yep.
more arm injuries. But
And
the
that
game
that's
has
another thing
changed.
I'd point out too is pitchers are so much more dominant now than they were.
Yeah.
You're going to have lower averages if the
Mm-hmm.
pitchers are more dominant. Because, in 2012, Justin Verlander throwing 100 was crazy.
Right. And
Now
now someone throws
everybody's throwing
102 on a
100.
regular. Right.
Yeah, they're like, it's like, oh, this guy broke triple digits. It's like, okay, how old is he? Oh, he's a freshman in college.
Yeah.
Like you didn't used to see that. Um, and yeah, as you said, that's also a big reason why you're seeing a lot more injuries because guys are throwing harder. Or people talking about like, oh, why do we need to keep pitch counts? Well, that's because these guys are throwing so much harder. It's not,
Yeah.
the 1970s where, they're throwing like 90 miles per hour, 95 if you're really fast, and
Mm-hmm.
you're able to throw an extra 40 pitches. So it's a different game, but I don't think that the hitting coach is the problem. I think the big thing is just our guys are young and they lack consistency and experience.
I'd
And
agree
yeah,
with
you can
you.
point to some other teams who are younger who are doing well, but everybody moves at a different pace. Also, with it being such a hitter or a pitcher's friendly ballpark, it does not help either.
No, it doesn't help. Like even to mention Spencer Torkelson, he's down in AAA
Mhm.
at the moment because of his struggles. Hopefully
But he's
he
doing
comes
really
up.
well down there too. Or
Mm,
he started
he
off really
was.
hot. He was doing really well.
But that's an adjustment period too, right?
Hmm.
When you get called up and you get called down, there's honestly a momentum fix, especially because of his high expectations that he
Hmm.
was a top draft pick. He was trying to get things going. So right off the bat, everyone expected him to hit 40 home runs. Da, 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 da. I mean,
Yep.
yes, he hit
You
30
expect him to be the
something
savior of the
exactly,
franchise.
right? But you can't carry one guy on your back at the same
Right.
time. You gotta. I don't know what they do. I can't speak on that. What they do in on daily practice, whether it's watching film, hitting,
Hmm.
more batting practice, or whatever, for when someone's struggling. But what you have seen this year, guys like Cole Keith, right?
Hmm.
He started off the season a little slow, a
I
little
was to say
slow.
he was quite slow, but he's
Last
starting to
last
heat up a
10
lot.
games,
Hmm.
he's heating up significantly.
Yep. You've seen a
So
lot of contributions from the young guys. Justin Henry Malloy, who just got called up.
yeah.
You're starting to see him a lot. So it's kind of just getting these guys used to it. Is the big thing in my eyes.
And Jonathan, I think we're gonna take a seventh inning stretch here, but what that's not what you think it means. It's not we're taking a break here in the podcast, Jonathan. It's time for a trivia, Jonathan. It's what we call
Trivia.
the seventh inning
Ooh.
stretch.
Okay, you're
I
bringing
got
a new segment here.
I got a few questions here for you. They're
Okay.
multiple choice. They're not gonna make you think. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds per question.
Wait. Can you have me try without the multiple choice? And if I can't get it, ask for the multiple choice?
Yes, that could be an
Okay.
option. We could do that.
Okay. I would like
So,
that because I might be able to do well without.
all right, you ready for your first question, or
Sure.
Jonathan?
I did not know that this was coming.
Well,
So,
surprises, surprises. That come with a bag of those.
yeah.
Your first question. Which team has won the most World Series titles?
The New York Yankees, followed by the St. Louis Cardinals.
Look at you.
Hmm.
Starting off the docket 1-1. We're gonna skip this next question because this is a weird one on the next docket here. But which of these players has not hit 50 home runs in a season? Now I gotta give you the option.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to give me the options on this one. Otherwise, I could name a lot of guys.
Is it A, Aaron Judge,
Well,
B,
that's wrong. He definitely has hit 50 home runs.
B, Jose Altuve, or C, Barry Bonds?
Well, that's easy. It's Jose Altuve. As soon as you said Altuve, I was gonna say him, but I was like, we're going to wait just in case, like Altuve hit 50 on the dot, and there was somebody
And
else that
then
you're gonna
he
toss in.
he
But
he has a career best of 31 home runs.
yeah, I know that he is like he's consistent at getting home runs, but it's not like an outrageous amount. I did know that, which is why as soon as you said him, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's who it is. But
Jonathan,
50 home runs is quite a difficult thing to do anyways, so not super surprising.
your third question, you talked a lot to me about what pitching is. This really isn't, there's a correct answer to this, but we both know what this correct answer is, okay? We talked a
Mhm.
lot about pitching, about the dynamics of winning and losing, why they don't matter today. Tell me, what in the world is an eephus pitch?
An eephus pitch, you're basically just lobbing the pitch in there and you're catching the batter off guard. Um, you see Zach Greinke use this occasionally. So if you're throwing 90 miles per hour and then you go and like Zach Greinke does throw about 60, you know, how hard is that going to be to hit?
You
Even it's it's a changeup on steroids, essentially.
You look
You
at Zach
know,
McKinstry every time he comes into the bat.
yep.
I remember there was one time I was at a Tigers game this year. They they said someone didn't realize there was a position player out there, and it was like the eighth inning, and it was 15-2. This guy, meanwhile, was on like 8 beers, but given that
Okay,
point,
that makes sense.
he was like, "Why is this pitcher not throwing the ball? He's only throwing 42 miles an hour," and I'm just like, "Dude, I've said it to you 3 times. There is a position player on the mound. What do you want him to do?" And he just wasn't getting. Um,
Yeah.
but your next question, Jonathan.
Oh, real
Hopefully
quick,
you're
talking
keeping
about
track.
position players pitching. You
Uh-huh.
remember when Cody Clemens pitched and he got one
Yeah.
strikeout? So then
Don Kelly, baby.
he and his dad were the had the most combined strikeouts of any pitcher, father-son
Yeah.
duo. And Cody had one strikeout and his dad had all the rest.
Your next question, hopefully you're keeping track of the score because I'm certainly not. Your
I'm
next
3 for 3
question.
so far.
Oh, are you? This
Hmm.
one's gonna be a stompy. What position did Mickey Mantle play for most of his career?
Well, he was a center fielder, I believe, until he tore his ACL in the drain pipe, or the
Mhm.
drain cover in the outfield. And then I believe he moved to right field because Joe DiMaggio, I think, yeah, took over center field from him. So I believe it's right
Mhm.
field.
I'm afraid to alert you, Jonathan, that you have just gotten your first one on a seventh inning stretch wrong. You're correct. You had it right originally with the
With
center
center
field
field.
field position.
Did he play that much before he got hurt then
I don't
of
have the
it?
exact numbers here, but what this thing is telling me is he did play center field. Um,
Well, yeah, he did play center field.
the most of his career. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was earlier in his career then that he got that. But maybe it was later than I thought.
We'll have maybe two more in this seventh inning stretch part of this
Okay.
before we get back to more maybe Tigers talk here. Um, what you talked a lot about batting average as well,
Yep.
about how those averages maybe don't matter and how those stats don't matter.
Hmm.
What batting average is the Mendoza line?
Mendoza line is 200.
Ding, 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 ding. Look at
Yeah.
you.
Which actually
Winner,
Mendoza
winner,
bat.
chicken dinner.
So
Ding.
Mendoza, who that line is named after, only had like 1 or 2 seasons below that. All the other ones were above that. Um, yeah, and it was originally an inside joke, just by some of the guys on his team. And then one of the guys on another team had been who was like formerly on his team or was friends with one of the guys on his team,
Yeah.
joked about it to the press. And then that kind of just became a thing. But he has a career average above 200. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was only like 2 seasons below 200. But
So they
he
picked
was
this
a he was
boy.
a he's a defensive first player too.
So he's kind of like what's his face? Brock Purdy. He gets named the seventh, the useless guy on the team, and then says, "Hey, I can go do this." Pretty much.
Kind of. It's not like his batting average is like that far above it. It might have been
Yeah.
like a 215 career average or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't 200 as a lot of people think. Um,
Your
yeah.
last question in this segment, Jonathan. I think this one you're gonna get wrong. I'm confident. I mean, I'm not praying for you to get it wrong, but I'm sure hoping for you
I
to
feel like
get
I've
one
done
wrong.
pretty well. Even the one I
You,
got wrong, I did know my stuff on. It was just
that
confusing
is true.
dates.
Your question is, which baseball player served as a naval aviator in both World War II and the Korean War?
Ted Williams.
Wow, right off the noggin. That
Hmm.
is correct.
I was just waiting to make sure that you said Korean War before I said anything
Look
on
at
that.
you knowing your
Yeah,
history.
he batted 400 and then like 2 years later, went to go serve, and most of his peak years he was serving in the armed forces during the wars.
Hmm.
But he got snubbed on multiple MVP awards during that time, and during your peak, he arguably would have been the best player to ever play had he been able to play during those times. Um, he was just ridiculous. at that time.
Now let's go to the call to the bullpen here, Jonathan. Well, going back to the Tigers talk here a little bit. I mentioned you earlier. I'd tell you a little bit about my Tiger game experience
This
on
weekend
Friday. That was an interesting one. So we got
against the
to
White Sox.
we won that game. I'll give you that. It was a
Yep.
2-1 game. However, the one thing that really annoyed me, there were 6 outs or 2 outs remaining left in the ball game.
Mhm.
And the scoreboard comes up and says, fans, please leave the seats in the stadium or the seats and go to the concourse due to, quote, thunder and lightning in the area. Well, mind you, it was sunny and cloudy outside. There was little like one raindrop falling on the ground. Better, the field was still being used by players. The
Yeah.
game was still going on. So I get
Wait,
it.
they
It's
continue to play after saying that though.
correct.
Interesting. So
But
I thought they finished the game before
mm-mm,
Storms. They did not. Was there like an out
no,
left?
there were 2 outs left. That's why.
Okay.
So,
Well, I
but
mean,
the
like
bet
when the game actually, like when they postponed it.
they didn't
Did they end
postpone
up?
it. No,
That's
they
what I was
played it.
saying. They ended up finishing the game before the
Correct.
Storms came in. Yeah.
The Storms, yes,
Yeah,
that
the
never came
Storms.
in.
Yeah.
Um, but the funny part of how that game ended in typical White Sox fashion, Jonathan, they hit a fly ball to center field, and the funny thing
Yep.
was the announcer for the White Sox, I have this quoted verbatim in his broadcast. He said, there's a lot of fans leaving the stadium due to thunder and lightning, but there are some fans seeking around, hoping for a White Sox comeback." 5 seconds later, deep
I
fly
know.
ball to center field, and it go the Paul DeJong doesn't know what he's doing and loses track
Mm-hmm.
of how many outs there are. Gets caught in between second and gets thrown over to first. The next thing over, the PA announcer comes over again to a crowd of boos, and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, due to tonight's game, weather in the area, fireworks have been canceled tonight." That was expected at the point when they announce that you have to move from the stands with 2 outs.
Yeah.
But the amount of eruption of booze in that
Oh, I'm
Comerica
sure.
Park, because
Just
for
set them
most
off real
people,
quick
well, for most people, honestly, they go to that Friday game
for the fireworks.
for the fireworks,
Hmm.
right? But it didn't even, it wasn't even, it was drizzling. The
Yeah.
amount in about 20 seconds after the final little handshake line of
Yeah.
after the game, ground crew sprinted and put the tarp down. I was stuck on the parking structure near Grand Circus Avenue or whatever
Yep.
because you have to cross into 4 lanes of traffic for that one.
Yeah, that's a
And I'm
fun one to
looking, I'm
drive.
like, where is this thunder and lightning? I don't see it at
It
all.
never came.
Never came. All I kept hearing on my way home was fireworks. Um, like
Were they setting
it's
off fireworks in the area and they thought it was thunder?
it wouldn't put it past me. I
That's
wouldn't put it
funny.
past them, but like it's a it's a fall out of my chair like moment. Like it's just one of those things where you like just fall out of your chair. Anyway, just yanked my entire computer out there. But it's one of those moments where jaw drops and you fall out of your chair not knowing what's happening.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I don't know what was going on with Paul DeJong on that play. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody really was. It was definitely an interesting way for us to win the game. I did see the highlight after the game and was just questioning what was going through his mind.
What was
I
going
guess it's similar to what Javi did last year against the Blue Jays
Speaking of Javi plays here, I want to take you back to before he joined the Tigers, Jonathan.
when he was with the
Remember?
Mets and playing out of his mind.
No, no, no. Was it the Mets? It was when they were, I think it was the Cubs, when they were versing the Pirates. And he like hit a ball right
Oh
back to the
yeah, it was with
pitcher.
the Cubs, and he runs back to
And
the wall,
he somehow got all the way back to first base without being tagged by
and
the
they
catcher.
overthrew it and everything, and he ended up on like third
Third
base.
base. Third base out
The
of any
craziest thing is, if you know baseball, there were two
Mhm.
outs in that inning. if you go to first and you beat the runner there, it doesn't matter that guy scored. You could score four guys.
Yeah.
You can't score four guys with that, but you could score three guys. And as long as the ball beats whoever to first base, it doesn't matter. I just don't get what's going like I get it. You're trying to prevent a run from scoring, and maybe they weren't thinking there were two outs. But that's also kind of why you say, hey, there are two outs,
You
go to
put
first.
go
Yeah,
yeah.
you go two outs, go to first.
I'm trying to do a last second quiz here for you here, Jonathan. I'm trying to pull it
Again,
up. Yeah, so
you're
I
really
don't
trying to stump me here, aren't you?
I'm very trying to stump you. I'm trying to find like an old time leader and see if you know who the leader of such things. Well, we're gonna play a game here. 2024 leaders, okay, Jonathan? Um,
This might be where you stump me.
this is gonna be who leads the league in base on balls?
And based on
Okay.
balls. Well, I was expecting walks, I was expecting like home runs or RBIs or hits or
Well,
something
you
like
see, that's
that.
that's the expected stats, Jonathan. Why you would know that on top of your head, just like you somehow knew Ted Williams on top of your head.
I have a lot of really useless baseball knowledge.
Same here.
Shout out literally like every channel I watch on YouTube. Based on balls. Is this counting intentional walks or no?
Whatever baseball reference counts, I don't know. I would assume not, because that's a different stat on here.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Who has a really good eye currently in the game? That's kind of who I'm trying to think of.
Think about it.
Can you give me league? Like National
A
League or American League?
AL.
Instincts tell me Juan Soto, but I don't think that's right. Is it right?
You tell me.
Juan Soto's known for being pretty good and selective at the plate. His Soto shuffle is pretty iconic. Is it
Y-
him?
You know what? I'm not gonna let you go down the wormhole of
I'm gonna
double
go
guessing
with Juan
yourself this time,
Soto.
because last time you double guessed yourself, you lost this
I
battle.
talked myself
So
out. Is it Juan Soto?
it is
Oh, okay.
indeed. So Jonathan, a bravo to you for that one.
I
But
definitely was gonna talk myself out of that too, had you not
I
stopped
should
me.
have let you do it to managers a little bit. Like
Mhm.
when teams misperform or teams are not getting off to a hot spot, I've always thought about it this way. And fans always call for the manager, the coach, whatever they're called,
Mhm.
head because the team's not performing. Yes, that's right to some sort of tactical way because the team's not approving. But at the end
Right.
of the day, they can only make so much game plans. They can only
Mhm.
do so much. You have uh, players that might not be able to perform their fullest potential. So, um,
Yeah, and you have certain guys who aren't developed either. That's the other thing, or not the right pieces around you. Crossing over to a different sport in football, look at the first 2 years with Dan Campbell with the
yeah,
Detroit Lions.
absolutely.
Like if we were holding him to the same measuring stick as a lot of other coaches, it'd be like, oh, well, the Lions aren't winning that much. Let's fire him. But
Even Jim Caldwell, when we fired him, he was 9-1 in his first year,
Jim
right?
Caldwell was such a good coach, and we fired him because he wasn't doing well enough. But we're not going to get sidetracked on, football talk here. But you can see a lot of the same things in baseball.
Right.
What was it, Joe Madden last year
Yeah.
getting fired with the Angels? A lot, as you said, a lot of this I isn't the manager. There are definitely some times where it is the manager, but you can have, you know, managers like Jim Leland who come into Detroit and they're good, but they don't win a World Series, you know? And then you can follow it up with a Brad Ausmus and they're good for a while, but like a lot of this is just what players you have. It's a little bit of having the managers there, and you definitely have to have the right manager. A lot of the times you aren't going to win with a bad manager. But it's personally, I feel like your manager or your head coach of your sport needs to be your real motivator. And then the coaches that they put around them, the hitting coach, the pitching coach, third base coach, all of those guys, they need to be the real teachers. Relating this back to football again, I think you really see this in Detroit right now. Dan Campbell's a great motivator. Ben Johnson's a great offensive play caller. You have the symbiotic relationship there. And I think for any coaching staff, any sport, you have to have that at the highest level, I should say. At other levels, it's a little bit different. So yeah, with the managers, I think really it's a good leader and a good motivator that you have to have, and your coaches are really where you gotta teach. So like people will call for the head coach or the manager all the time. Sometimes that's a problem, but I think like some people are calling for AJ Hinch to be fired right now. And I'm like,
Why?
he's one of the better managers we're gonna get. We just extended him. He's not the problem. And again, harping back to earlier, it's you just need to let these guys have a little bit of time. I know I've been saying that all season, and at some point it's like, okay,
It's
well,
got to
these
give in,
guys
right?
need to get to that point. But at this point, we're not competing realistically. We still could.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, the Phillies turned it around in June, which I guess it's the end of June, but it's possible. And we're not out of the hunt yet.
Oh,
But
no, we're not.
yeah, if Torque was performing how he was performing last year, I fully believe we are, you know, firmly in this hunt and possibly right up there at the top of our division. Maybe not in first, but we might be right behind first. Um, but yeah, realistically, we might make some moves at the deadlines to add to see if we can push it.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we made the playoffs this year, we're not winning the World Series. So I don't think people need to be freaking out as much as they are. Trust me, I'm just as disappointed as you guys are that the Tigers aren't performing well. I had really high hopes for them this year.
Especially
But
after the start of the season. You had some
yep,
high hope, especially, but they always seem to either start slow and come back or start
or they
fast and then
start
start
fast and
slow.
then go slow. Yeah. Watch, we're going to end like 3 games short of the wild card again this year or something like, or
Especially
the
with
division.
the expansion of the wild card, it's very possible.
Mhm. Um, but yeah, the biggest things are just guys need to, develop and start hitting the ball. And we need to get rid of the Cure Auto ad on top of the whales because
I'm afraid,
we play
Jonathan, this podcast will never be
significantly better.
sponsored by Cure Auto Insurance after you just thrashed them.
I love Cure Auto because they're from Michigan and they sponsor a lot of the Detroit teams. And it's nothing against them, no matter who is up there, I would, want it down. But we need to uncover the whales. Cure Auto, you cannot find anywhere else to advertise, Rocket Mortgage, Lunchables. Like, come on, guys. So truly, if Cure Auto wanted to, be a good Detroit fan or like a good Detroit sponsor, I know you're losing it here. They would advertise somewhere not on the whales so that the Tigers could still win. I don't know if your mic's on because I'm not picking up your laughter. It's not on.
I
Oh, there we
completely
go.
muted myself so you
Okay.
could
Because
finish your
you're laughing so
sentence.
hard. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm not trying to burn any bridges with Curado here, but whoever
That's why I
the
started
big
cracking up because you said no and then you went, "Oh, Gear Auto Insurance, you're so phenomenal."
the big thing though is whoever decides that over top of the whale mural, which is one of only a few in the world. So
Yeah,
like people travel to see these. Whoever decided that over top of that was a great spot for an advertisement, what are you doing? Like it is if there wasn't a mural there. You can't find anywhere else to advertise. Come on. But
shame, shame, shame,
it,
shame,
it
shame.
really is. But yeah, I think for right now for this year, we just have to be okay with, 500 ball. I'd be happy if we finished above 500. I really would.
That would be amazing.
Um, we haven't been above 500, I don't think, since we made the playoffs last. Because I
Mm,
think we were right around there, but we haven't been above. It was either that or
no,
like the
let's
year
look.
after.
Let's look real
Not
quick.
counting 2020. Not counting 2020.
Not counting. Okay. Tigers records.
But it's yeah.
Team history, encyclopedia. Goodness. Lord.
But
All right.
honestly, I think if we finish above 500, it's a good
Last
step,
time we were 500 was 2016.
which was the last time we made the
Yeah.
playoffs. Yep, we lost to the Orioles in the wild card. Yeah, I remember watching that.
Yeah.
But
Way to
yeah,
end on a hot note, Jonathan.
if we finish at or above 500 though, I would genuinely be happy.
B.
Um, you're seeing a lot of good players start to develop. Tarek Skubal, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter. Of course, when Kerry's not hurt. So, you build up this nucleus this year. I think in the coming years, you have a really solid team, especially with some more of our prospects coming up. Parker Meadows hopefully performing better. You have Jace Young, who is on the IL right now. But you have a lot of good guys coming up. We should be able to make a solid run for a little
Oh,
while coming up.
oh,
And
yeah.
I'm really forward to that. But don't start, calling for the general manager to be fired and everything quite yet. He's only been on the job for a year and a half. And in my
Yeah.
opinion, he's done a very good job, especially with the situation he was in.